Hey friends, what's good? Welcome to Storytime. I'm trying not to yell. How are you guys doing today? So I just had kind of a random thing that I wanted to talk about today about resilience when life just throws you a huge curveball. So a year and a half ago, I lost my husband, and he kind of we knew. I mean, he was progressively getting quite sick, and we kind of had some ideas that it wasn't going to turn out well, but we didn't really prepare much because we were always really hopeful that doctors were wrong and that things would change and things would be good. But, it took a turn for the worst. And when he passed away, I kind of had some expectations about what might come next, but I had no idea that every single thing I'd ever thought about would just go out the window. Because in the throes of losing somebody that you love, that you've spent 20 years with, sometimes you're planning for like a retirement. So when we planned for retirement, it was technically why we created our businesses. So we had our popcorn stands, and we were going to be independent, and he was going to stop logging, and we were going to run popcorn stands. We're going to do car shows and all that kind of stuff. So that was initially the retirement plan. And Dave and I lived on the edge, so we didn't worry about a lot of things. But inevitably, sometimes you have to think a little bit about what's going to happen in the future, what might happen in the future. But what I wanted to talk about today is how resilient we become when we are in the throes of an emergency or a crisis, like losing a loved one. So I immediately contacted my kids, and my boys were so incredibly helpful during this process that they immediately turned into my guardians, my caregivers, and they let me have time to kind of sit and, grieve. So I was able to grieve, but what ended up happening, which I didn't expect, I mean, normally I think when somebody passes away, you're living in a house, you stay in the house. Life kind of keeps going, but it changes a little bit. But Dave and I lived on the road so much in a big Winnebago bus. We had a 40-foot Winnebago, and we'd drive from place to place. We would log, we'd do all sorts of things, but we never ever sort of established home, like where we would live when we retired, because we just were going to go wherever we wanted. We were kind of freewheelers. We did that. So I had to really sit back and think about what would I want to do, where would I want to be, and how am I going to do this? And without my kids, my boys, Kelsey and Nick, I wouldn't have made a few of the choices that I did make, but these guys were so good at kind of putting my whole life into a nice little package, a nice box, and allowing me to think a little, like not have to think. They thought for me, the banking, organizing my life to the point where all I could do is just, sit and cry for a while and be sad and do what I had to do to grieve. So immediately the kids said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to keep any of this." I didn't want to keep anything that I owed any kind of money on. So I had just got a new truck. Dave bought me a new truck, and we had our house and stuff. So I just gave that all back and said, "I've got to start, excuse me, fresh, because I'm not going to be able to. I couldn't imagine what I was going to be doing in 6 months or even a year. I didn't know, because it was always about him and I together doing what we were going to do, which was always just kind of living by the seat of our pants. And absolutely, I still love that way of living. Don't get me wrong. That's a fun way to live. But I I watched my kids jump into this mode of we've got to help our mom. And I'm telling you, you got to raise your kids right and they will take care of you. And I love them so much. So what they ended up doing was they took our old B-150 van. I was trying to sell it because we just had too many things. So I was selling the B-150. It was a 1986. Loved this van. We were souping it up. It was going to be a race van. Like you were going to throw on some good pipes and make it just an awesome van. It was carbureted, and it was a great fun van. But never in a million years would I have thought that that would be what I was going to live in for the next year. And that's what happened. So my kids went into high gear. They built, my youngest son got the van started, like got it going and running, tore seats out, made space, put shelving in it, a bed in it, everything I needed to get me out of there where I was and into my new life. And it was amazing because looking back now, I did it. I lived in a van for a year, and it was cold and it was wet and it had no insulation, but I did it. And it was just like you don't know how resilient you are until you're thrown into that kind of horrible scenario. And it ended up turning out to not be as horrible as I thought, because it just built me up to be a stronger person and to know that I could do just about anything. And Dave always told me I could do anything. That was his favorite thing to do, was to hype me up every day and let me know that I could do anything. So the boys, they got me set up, and I ended up, after all of the stuff that had happened, I got in that van and I drove it and pulled my popcorn stand behind me in a big trailer. The van wasn't running great, but I drove to get to my son's wedding. I said, God, please get me to the wedding. Don't let anything happen. Let me get to the wedding. I got to the wedding and the van literally broke down right there in the parking lot at the wedding hall. And I had to stay there for 3 days. Luckily, it was okay. Nobody said anything. They just let me stay there. And then, I'm not kidding you, this van didn't want to start. And I said, my faith is so strong that I said, God, if you start this van, I will get in it and I will drive all the way to the next place and I won't stop. And I got in the van and I said to the kids, I'm going to be driving out of here, you guys. I got to get out of here. I got to go down to the place where they're going to let me live. And it's going to be very, very good for me. Oh, and my dog's going to bark. So I get in the van. I drive with the dogs. We drive all the way. Like, this thing, it started and it did not stop until I got exactly to the spot where I live now. Then it stopped and it never ran again. And I'm not kidding you that if you don't have faith in something, like my faith is so strong that I believe that God got me down here. And then it started to get better. I'm just going to reprimand her for a second. Shush. It started to get better when all of a sudden, as I was living in this horrible way where I was thinking, I'm going to freeze to death, I don't have enough food. Like, how do people do this? How do they live in a van? And but it ended up becoming a place of a complete, what's the word I'm looking for? It was just very comfortable after a while. And I felt very good because I was safe. And the place that I'm staying at now, they knew us prior because we had logged down here. And so they knew me. And slowly I start seeing people come around me and ask me questions. How are you doing? Like, what's going on? And then one day I met a beautiful couple, and they had been talking with other people from their church, and they said, we have a home for you. And that's where I live now. They brought me a home to live in. So I'm in a 29, 30-foot motorhome that is now parked in the same spot, and I get to live here and I get to actually experience life without having, the trials and tribulations of living in a van anymore. But I have to admit, living in that van changed my whole life. And sometimes we think we're not going to get through something, and then for me, God said, no, this is just the beginning. You'll be fine. Just keep on having faith and trust in the process, because it's not always going to be like this. And now it's so at peace now that I've spent the last year just being able to grieve and to go through all the motions of loss, and it's been really phenomenal. So I want to just tell you guys that through a lot of crisis, sometimes your resilience just gets built right up. You get more courageous. Um, you see yourself in a completely different light, where you think, I am strong. I can do this. This is amazing. Like, what we are able to actually do in the middle of just the worst season. Yeah, Sadie agrees. So that's all I wanted to talk about today was just the fact that you got to keep going sometimes and really trust the process and trust yourself and stay focused on the things that really matter to you, like your family, your kids, your grandkids. I'm so grateful that I'm at this point now where I can start I can breathe. I can breathe in and out and start getting ready to create the new life that I'm going to have to create because I'm here. I miss him tremendously, but what am I going to do about it? Sit and whine and cry and not do anything? No, he wouldn't like that at all. He'd want me to keep going, keep adventuring, and have a great life. So, anyway, that's the longest video I think I've ever done 10.5 minutes. Thank you for hanging out. And remember to like and subscribe and comment and just check out all my backstories. I'm just going to keep telling stories because it's what I love to do. Talk about nostalgia and irrelevant things. And anyways, God bless you guys and everybody have a fantastic weekend. Happy Valentine's Day. See you later.